today we're going to explore lizard pose. So lizard pose is classed as a hip opener. So what that means, it's a stretch or a position that allows us to really target the hip joint and the surrounding areas. So think hip flexors, glutes and hamstrings. It's also a very good way of building strength into the groin muscles and the hammies. So before we come straight into the pose today, we're going to just ease through the legs a little bit, and then I'm going to talk you through the variations of lizard and how to make it the best for you. So when you're ready, we're just going to come onto all fours and then take it up into our down dog. And once we're here, we're just going to walk our dog, so 1 foot at a time. Make sure you're pressing your hands firmly down into the ground. Trying to lower the heels down to the floor. Doesn't matter if they touch or not, but we just want to try and open up through the Achilles and the calves. Lovely. From here, we're then going to lift both heels off the floor, press the balls of the feet down. Exhale, lower. We're going to do that 4 more times. Make sure that you're firming the L-shaped part of both your hands down to the ground. So where your thumb and index finger are, press it to the floor. Lift the heels up as high as you can. We've just got 1 more. Lovely. Then from here, we're going to send the left leg up towards the sky, come into our 3-legged dog. Now point the left toes up towards the ceiling, extend through the leg, and then as you next exhale, bend the leg softly, and as slowly as you can, place the foot between your hands. We're just going to drop the back knee down. Now, back toes can be flat to the floor and toes tucked, whatever feels comfortable, but for your starting point, just make sure your knee's in line with the hip. And I definitely meant knee in line with the ankle, but all in a nice straight line. Now before we come into our lizard pose, we're just going to work through the hammies just a little bit more, because this might be the first time that you've come on your mat today. So from here, just slowly straighten the front leg, pull the toes back, and then exhale, sink back down. So if the hamstrings are quite tight today, try not to force that leg straight. Just take it to a point of where you feel that stretch. And as we're doing this, just be mindful of the upper body. Try not to allow the shoulders to collapse towards the ears. Keep some sort of length in the back of the neck. Lovely. And then just slowly going to come forward, and we're going to start preparing ourselves for the pose. So you're going to bring your left hand, I've got my left foot forward, so left hand's to the inside of the foot. And we're just going to create a little bit more space here. So we're going to walk the left foot out towards the side and just slightly turn the toes out. So think like 11 o'clock on a clock. Now, sometimes when we come into some of these hip opening or some of these poses, we really try and just crank ourselves down to the ground. Sometimes it's better to ease ourselves into it, and you might actually find that you get more of a stretch when you're higher up than when you're sinking down to the ground. So what I want you to do here is have your hands flat down to the ground. Now, if you already feel like the earth is a little bit too far away from you here, you could always bring a yoga block or 2, and maybe place your hands on that. But what I want you to try and do is press that left foot down into the ground, and just notice how that kind of gets into the groin muscles a little bit more. So another thing when we come into yoga poses, it's tempting just to hang there, make the shape, but not really get the benefits out of it. So we always want to make sure that we're working the muscles that we're meant to be working. So maybe if this feels okay, like bend your elbows, sink a little bit deeper. And if you want a little bit more stretch on that back leg, what you can do is tuck the toes, if they're not already, and press the knee away from you, and just see how that feels. Now, the glutes work really close to the hips. So whilst you're in this position, try not allow the rest of your body to go soft. So you're squeezing your glutes. That helps, especially with that back hip, to activate. Keep the spine long, shoulders away from the ears. And whatever area feels tightness or you feel that restriction, try and breathe into that point of the body. Now you can either stay on the blocks, or maybe have the arms bent, or if it feels okay, you can drop it down onto your forearms. Now, I don't always get the biggest stretch when I come down onto my forearms. It's kind of somewhere in, for me, in between lowering down to my elbows and having bent elbows. I just feel like I get more of a stretch on that back leg when I just don't dump myself down towards the ground. Now what you can do here If maybe you want to increase the stretch just a little bit more, get into all the tendons and the ligaments, you can press that left foot down into the ground. Imagine that you're pulling it back and then you're trying to pull your right knee forward to meet into the center of the mat. Again, use your breath, keep connecting to your inhale and your exhale. We're just going to hold it here for a couple more breaths, keeping that activation of pressing that left foot down, squeezing the glutes. So not only does that help get into that front hip, it also helps stabilize the spine. So if you do have lower back issues, make sure you're really squeezing your derriere. Lovely. To come out the pose as mindful as you entered it, nice and slowly, take your time. You're going to lift yourself up. If you walk that back leg away, you're just going to tuck the toes, press the knee slightly forward. We're going to walk the left foot between the hands. Just take a moment to notice how that leg feels. And then when you're ready, we're just going to step back, come back into our down dog. And you might notice a difference from one side to the other. We're just going to balance that out now. So right leg reaches up, point the toes, lengthen through the leg to start. And then nice and slowly place the foot between your hands or near enough and then drop it down. Make sure your right knee's in line with the ankle. And then from here, we're going to slowly rock it back, pull the toes back, and then come forward. So we always have one side that feels a little bit more flexible, a little bit freer than the other side. The key is always not to force your least flexible side to match your flexible side. Be grateful for the movement that you've got and take it for what it is. Just going to do one more each way. And then when you come forward, you're going to place both your hands to the inside of that front foot. Shuffle the foot out to the side. So now right foot's forward. You're going to turn the toes to think 1 o'clock. Now, I forgot to mention this on the other side. You want that back knee to be comfortable. So if it's uncomfortable to have your knee down on the ground, you can always have a blanket or something. Just give yourself a little bit of extra padding on your kneecap. At the moment, we're going to stay quite high, noticing how this feels. Still press that right foot down into the ground. You'll still get that activation in the hips. It might just not be as big as what you want. Can always use your blocks, remember. And you can use these when you're coming down onto your forearms. So if you're finding it that you're kind of almost there, use the blocks. Just give yourself a little bit of a help. You can either stay here, maybe walk that back knee away a little bit more. And again, toes can be tucked or toes can be flat. I just always prefer to have my toes tucked, flat. So soften yourself into it, squeeze your derriere, bend the elbows. If that feels good, maybe drop down to your forearms. But we want to find that stretch. We don't want to just hang around in a position because we think it looks good or we think it looks like how it should be. The guide is always your body, so make sure you're feeling that stretch. And the areas ideally that you should be feeling this is your glutes, that left hip, the front of it, and the inside of your right hip. Keep the feet active, try and pull that right foot back. Left knee forward. I'm just going to hold it here for a couple more breaths. So always use the blocks. The blocks doesn't mean that you're cheating, but if it means that you get more out of the pose, then I would always recommend them. When you're ready, nice and slowly, come back out, bring the foot towards the inside of the hand, and then we're just going to step it back, come back, find our down dog. As you next exhale, you're going to just drop your knees down, just going to come into a seated position. So they're the standard lizard poses that I would teach in a class, and there are at the next level that you can take it to, so more advanced versions of lizard. So if you feel like your hips are strong, you feel like you get a good stretch, you're coming down quite low, then you can take it into this. But always be mindful, make sure you do this preparation first before you even try and attempt some of these ones. So I'm just going to show you left foot first, hands to the inside. From here, make sure you're comfortable, activate the muscles. You've always got the option to lift that right knee off the floor, press the heel away from you. You can either do this hands down on the ground, elbows bent, or forearms down. Key here is to find that length across the back line of the body. So you're pressing your head away from your back foot. We're squeezing the glutes. We're keeping the core engaged because we don't want the hips to drop. Another variation, if you want to test your balance a little bit, is to send your left arm, so the top of the left arm goes underneath the left leg, reach the hand out to the side, send your right arm out. So you might not be able to see that because my hair gets in the way, so I'm just going to turn around so you can see it this way. Now these are always meant to be a little bit of fun, and you can try and do it with your back knee down to see how this feels. That front knee is going to want to roll out to the side, but try and keep the knee close to the body, keep that big toe flat to the floor. You can either have the back knee on the ground or not. If the back knee is off the floor, press the foot away from the head, stamp that left foot down into the ground, and as always, when you come out the pose, really take the time to come out mindfully, because sometimes when we just like drop out of a pose, that's sometimes when we can get into like a little bit of areas of where we could cause injuries or a little bit of aggravation in muscles. So that's a lizard pose. It can sometimes be a little bit of a love-hate pose because obviously hips don't lie, and when they're tight you definitely know about it. But hopefully that's broke it down. Hopefully that's given you a few variations that you can now try on your yoga mat.
Chingity ching, it's Dominic the donkey.